Okay guys, so this worksheet that you have is really simple. If you know the shortcut, you should be able to go through these and answer them all quickly. So let's take a look at number one. We could set this up and then simply think what times what is 24 that if you add together is 10. 6 times 4, that's a positive 6 times a positive 4, and you're done, right? Let's move on to the next one, number 2. Let's set it up. Now, again, the only reason we're able to set this up is because this is just an h squared, right? H times h is h squared. If you had a 6 right here, you wouldn't be able to set it up like this, right? You'd have to use the long method of factoring. So the shortcut only is able to be applied where your a value is 1, okay? Anyhow, what times what is 27 that if I combine together is 12? 9 times 3, positive 9 times positive 3. And again, it doesn't matter if you have the 9 here and the 3 here, or if you switch them, that's totally fine. Commutative property of multiplication allows you to do that. This one right here, let's set it up. What times what is 33 that if I add together is 14? 11 and 3, right? So plus 11 plus 3. Let me just do the odd ones. I'm not going to go through every single one. Let's jump to number 5. And you might be struggling, and if you are, I recommend make a list of numbers of the multiples of the C that combine together to give you the B. So here's our general setup. Let's say you can't just see the answer. What times what is negative 56 that if you add together is positive 1? Then you could actually make a list if you want to. You could say, okay, 1 times 56. Actually, it'd be negative 1 times 56. Or maybe negative 2 times 28. So they're all the possible multiples of getting negative 56 besides changing the signs. So if you just look at all those different pairs of numbers, and if you were to start adding them, like negative 1 plus 56, that's 55. And obviously the B value right here is not 55, it's positive 1. So this is not it. You go to the next one, negative 2 plus 28, that's 26. The B value is not 26, it's 1. You go to the next one, negative 4 plus 14, that's 10. And obviously the B value is not 10, it's positive 1. You go to the last one, negative 7 plus 8, that is 1 when you add those together, right? So that's the correct pair of numbers that we're looking for. So you simply put the minus 7 right there and the positive 8 right there. Important that you put positive. Let's move on to number 7. Let's set it up. What times what is negative 32 that if you add together is 4? If you want, make a list. Negative 1 times 32. Negative 2 times 16. Negative 3 doesn't work. Negative 4 times 8. Negative 5 doesn't work. Negative 6. That's about it, right? Those are all the possible options. Which pair of numbers combines together to give you a positive 4? That would be this pair of numbers. Negative 4 plus 8 is positive 4. So you simply just plug it into your answer format. And you're done. That's your answer for 7. Moving on to number 9. So of course we're able to use the answer format. Put a T right there, a T right there. And then you think what times what is negative 45 that if you combine together is positive 4. And if you don't see it right off the bat, go ahead and make a list. But 9 times negative 4, actually that's not it. 9 times negative 5, that'll give you a negative 45. And if you combine that together, it does give you a positive 4. So positive 9, negative 5, that's your factored form answer.
I knew that.
Moving on. Number 11. Set up your answer format. And then you simply think, what times what is the C value? What times what is this last number, positive 63, that if you add, that if you combine together, gives you a negative 16. Okay? So negative 9 times negative 7. Negative 9 times negative 7. That'll give you a positive 63. And if you do add them together, it really does give you that B value of negative 16. So negative 9 and negative 7. Again, if you don't see it right off the bat, get a calculator and start making your list. Like 1 times 63, like 2 times something, it doesn't work. Like 3 times 21, and so on, until you get to the correct pair of numbers that combines together to give you the middle value B. 13, setting up our answer format. Now we can think what times what is negative 56 that if we combine together is negative 1. If you don't see it, make a list, like -1 times 56, like -2 times 28, like -3, I don't think anything works with 3, like -4 times 14, I believe. -5 doesn't work, -6 doesn't work, -7 times 8, that'll give us -56. That's a list right there of all the possible combos of multiplying numbers together to give you 56, -56 that is. And you want to find the pair of numbers that combines together to give you the b value, which in this case is -1. So if you add 1 and 56, you get 55. That can't be it. You want -1. This right here, when you add them, it gives you 26. It doesn't work. This one didn't work anyway. This one's 10. Doesn't work. Didn't work. This one gives you a +1, but we want a -1. And we do have the 1 at least. So we have the right numbers. We just have the wrong signs. So what you need to do is change that -7 to a +7, change that +8 to a -8. So you really have a +7 and a -8, and that's the correct factored form. Again, if you're struggling with the multiplication tables, make a list. 1 times what gives you that number? 2 times what? 3 times what? You make that list, and then you go through and look at the different pairs of numbers and see which pair of numbers combines together to give you the b value. Number 15, even before attempting to factor this, you have to write it in a standard form, in the correct order from highest exponent down to smallest. So there it is in standard form. And now that we have it in standard form, we're able to set up our answer format. And then after that, we simply think, what times what is 32 that if I combine together is 18? Let's say you have no clue. Just start. 1 times what is 32? 1 times 32. How about 2 times something? Use a calculator. You'll see that 2 times 16 is 32. Or 3 doesn't work. 4 times 8 does work. 5 doesn't work. 6 doesn't work. 7 doesn't work. 8 doesn't work. No, 4 times 8. Okay, same thing. So those are all the possible multiplication problems that'll give you 32. Which pair of numbers combines together to give you the middle value, which is 18? That would be 2 and 16. And that is a +2 and a +16. Now, of course, if you see the pair of numbers right off the bat, you don't have to make the list. I only say make the list if you're struggling with your multiplication tables. And of course, you could use calculators. Let's jump to 17. 17 is weird. So weird. What we're going to do on 17 is we're just going to go with it. I know that my first term is going to be a j and a j because j times j is j squared. Now, what times what? Let's kind of ignore the k squared value. What times what is -10 that if you combine together is -9? What times what is -10 that if you combine together gives you -9? All right, let's make a list. How can I get -10? -1 times 10, -2 times 5, that's it, right? So the first one, but the signs are wrong, so you switch them. So it's really a +1 times a -10, and this is the correct combo we want. So we're going to plug in a +1 and a -10, but that still doesn't give us at the very end a, like if I go 1 times -10, that gives me a -10, but I need a k squared, right? So what do you think is going to be right here and here? K's. So let's put the 1k and -10k. Now, since this is a funky question, you might want to double check it. So let's actually go through and double check it. If I go j times j, what do I get? J squared. If I go j times -10k, -10, just kidding. Get it? Just jk. All right. And then if I go +1k times +1j, that'll be a +1 kj, but let's put it in order, jk. And then +1 times +1k times -10k, that'll be a -10k squared. And if I did combine the middle values, you'll see that you really do get that b value up here of -9jk. So it really does work. Since we had two variables here, we distributed just to double check and make sure, check, that it does give us the above quadratic trinomial. Let's move on, number 19. Now, from here on out is where we have equations that we need to solve. And how do we do this? It's really three words that you want to remember: factor, split, and solve. Factor, split, and solve. So if it's factorable, you factor it. Use a shortcut. So let's think, what times what is 42 that if I combine together gives me 17? Well, let's make a list if we don't see it right off the bat. 1 times 42, 2 times 21, 3 times 14, and I did that with the calculator. 4 doesn't work, 5, 6. 6 times 7 gives me 42, right? So that's about it, all the possible multiplication of two numbers that gives me 42. Now, which of those pair of numbers combines together to give me 17? 3 and 14. So you put positive 3, positive 14. Okay, so we factored it. What's the next word that we use? Split or separate, sure. So we have the x plus 3, we set that equal to 0. We have the x plus 14, we set that equal to 0. Now remember, this is zero product property that allows us to separate it. Again, just to review, something times something equals 0. You know that first something has to be 0 or the second something has to be 0 in order for you to get 0 as an answer. So you are able to take a complicated looking equation and simply separate them into two simple equations. And now you solve both. Minus 3, x equals negative 3. That's one answer. Minus 14, x equals minus 14. That's another answer. And we're done. Move on to 21. There's 21. Factor, split, and solve. Now, the only reason why we're able to think factor, split, and solve is because the equation's equal to 0. If it didn't have the equal 0, you first have to make it equal 0, and then you do factor, split, and solve. So let's set up the shortcut on factoring. And now we could think, what times what is negative 54 that if I combine together is positive 3? Does anybody know that answer? Yeah, it's negative what? Positive 9 and negative 6. That's good. Positive 9 times negative 6 is that C value, negative 54. And if I add positive 9 and negative 6, I will get a positive 3. So it's always what times what is a C value that if you combine together is a B value. And if you're stuck, make a list, use a calculator, and then see which pair of numbers combines together to give you the B value. Anyhow, we factored. Now we're going to split. There it is. I split them. And now we're going to solve. Minus 9, k equals negative 9. Plus 6, k equals 6. It's too easy. Moving on to 23. Now right here, it's not set equal to 0, so we need to do that first. We need to subtract 32, and then subtract 32 to be able to get the equal 0 part. Because the equal 0 is necessary for you to apply the zero product property. If you don't have the equal 0, then you can't apply the zero product property. Anyway, we cannot subtract 4n and 32. They're not like terms. You can't even do n squared minus 32. They're not like terms. So you're just going to rewrite this as a quadratic trinomial. So n squared plus 4n minus 32 equals 0. And now that we have a quadratic trinomial that is factorable, set equal to 0, now we could actually factor using the shortcut and then split it and then solve it. So what times what is negative 32 that if I combine together is positive 4? Positive 8 times negative 4, that'll give you negative 32, right? 8 times negative 4 is negative 32. And if you add 8 and negative 4, you really do get 4, positive 4 as a middle term. So that's a correct factorization. Now we're going to split it. N plus 8 equals 0. N minus 4, well, that's ugly. Let me fix that. N minus 4 equals 0. And we're going to get our two answers. N equals negative 8. Sorry, I didn't show work there. And N equals positive 4. Number 25. On 25, first subtract that 56. Subtract the 56. Rewrite your quadratic trinomial and set equal to 0. So now you have it set up with the quadratic trinomial set equal to 0. You could factor, split, and solve. So what times what is 56 that if I combine together is negative 26? You might need a list. So if you go like negative 1 times 56, negative 2 times 28, negative 3, wait a minute, negative 2 times 28, that already gives me 26, right? If I combine them? But it's the wrong signs. So we know it's just going to be the opposite signs, a positive 2 and a negative 28. So if you put positive 2 and negative 28, you'll have the correct factored form. And then you could actually split it. T plus 2 equals 0. T minus 28 equals 0. And now you could actually solve minus 2, minus 2. So T really does equal negative 2. That's one answer. And then you go plus 28, and you have T equals 28 as another answer. Number 27. Once again, let's subtract 5y to get it equal to 0. Subtract 5y. You can't really subtract it, so you're just going to rewrite it as a quadratic trinomial set equal to 0. So there's your standard form quadratic trinomial set equal to 0. Now you could think about the shortcut of factoring, and you think what times what is negative 84 that if you combine together is negative 5. So you might want to make a list. So I made this list not off the top of my head. I actually got a calculator and I did, okay, negative 1 times 84, I knew that. But I went 84 divided by 2, that way I could get the negative 2 times 42. And then 84 divided by 3 is 28, so negative 3 times 28. 84 divided by 4 is 21, so 4 times 21 will give me 84. So I did all this with the calculator. I encourage you to do so if you don't see the possibilities off the top of your head. So now, which pair of numbers combines together to give you a negative 5? Yeah, and you're not going to see it because I missed it. It's negative 7 times 12. I apologize. So negative 7 times 12, that's a correct pair of numbers, but the wrong signs, because we want the b value to be negative 5, and if I add negative 7 and positive 12, it'll give me a positive 5. So now I have the right numbers, I just have the wrong signs. So let's change that to a positive, change that to a negative. So you really do have a positive 7 and a negative 12, and that's a correct factored form. After that, you split it. Y plus 7 equals 0. Y minus 12 equals 0. And you'll have your two answers, y equals negative 7, and also y equals positive 12. Last one, we're going to subtract the 16u, and we're also going to subtract the 36. So we're going to subtract 16u and subtract 36. So this cancels, that cancels. You really do end up with equals 0. But then on the left side, you end up with this quadratic trinomial because you can't really subtract anything. It's going to be u squared minus 16u minus 36 equal to 0. Does that make sense? So now that we have that standard form quadratic trinomial, I could do my shortcut, put a u right there and a u right there, and we think what times what is negative 36, that if we combine together is negative 16. And if you don't see it right off the bat, make a list like negative 1 times 36, negative 2 times 18, negative 3 times 12, negative 4 times 9, negative 6 times 6. Which pair of numbers gives you a negative 16? 2 and 18. That gives you a positive 16. So you want to change those signs. Make that a positive 2 and make that a negative 18. So positive 2 and negative 18, that's your correct factored form. And then you split it. U plus 2 equals 0. U minus 18 equals 0. And you will get your two answers. U equals negative 2 and U equals positive 18. Ladies and gentlemen, this video has all the odd questions done for you. You guys need to do the even ones as well. The answers are on the back of your worksheet. Thank you.